What's the haps, everyone? It's Joe here, and I'm here to talk about my new plugins. First up is QuadBass. QuadBass is a 4-band bass distortion and amp simulator. This takes a signal chain I've developed over the years, which usually uses multiple plugins and multiple tracks for parallel processing, and distills it all into one easy-to-use plugin. Let's check out the controls. Up in the top, you've got input and output gain, an input compressor, and an output gate. The input compressor is set to settings similar to an 1176, with a slow attack and fast release. The control here is the threshold knob. So as you turn this down, you will compress the signal more, which will become evident by the gain reduction meter, which intuitively shows gain reduction from 0 dB to -12 dB. On the input stage, I like it around -3 dB. Next up, you have the crossover section. This is where you can adjust the crossover frequency of each band. The low crossover controls the point where the low band becomes the low mid band. The mid crossover controls the point where the low mid becomes the high mid band, and the high crossover controls the point where the high mid band becomes the high band. Now you're probably asking, why 4 bands? This is simply a process that I used to use when creating bass distortions using FabFilter Saturn. That'll let you add as many distortion bands as you want, and I usually ended up with 4. The low one was just for warmth. I don't want that to get too distorted. The low mid and high mid, to me, are the most important because they sort of control how the bass will cut through the mix. You can go with more distortion on the low mid side to enhance the fuzziness and sort of how it blends in with the guitars. And you can enhance the distortion on the high mid side to cut through your mix a little more. And finally, the high is its own separate band because I'm not a huge fan of bass clank. Some people like it, I'm not as much, but I wanted it there as its own option. So you can adjust the high mid distortion, allowing your bass to cut through better without clanking the heck out of it. Or if you do want that extra presence, you can crank the high distortion for extra presence and clankiness. It's all up to you. You have all the control here, and that's what I love about this plugin. In the 4-band section, you have a drive control, power amp control, and a level control. The drive is the amount of distortion on your band. The low band is always kept pretty clean, so the drive isn't going to change too much there, but you can really get experimental with how you distort the low mid band versus the high mid band, and vice versa. The power amp control is similar to a compressor. It compresses the signal very slightly, it enhances the harmonics, and it pushes the signal a little harder into the saturation stage. And finally, you have the level control, which is going to be the amount of gain per band. So for example, you can cut 6 dB from the low mid channel to scoop your sound a little bit. You can increase the high mid channel just slightly to have your bass tone cut through the mix just a little better. Or you can turn up your lows, turn up your highs, whatever you want to do. It's your own mixer, essentially your own EQ right there as you're controlling the volume of these 4 bands. What's special about this plugin is that your low band stays compressed through the low compressor, and only the low band gets compressed here. So you can turn this compressor off and not worry about it, but if you're in a modern metal situation where you need a tone to really stay even and cut through, you're usually going to want to use that low compressor, and I like to compress it about 6 dB on the low end. You can use your ear, sometimes more sounds fine as well. What you really want to do is flatten out that low channel so that you don't have any rogue peaks or any rogue notes that resonate louder than other notes. You want that to just sort of be even so that in that metal mix, your bass tone stays even. Finally, on the other side, we have an output compressor. This is a very gentle compressor, similar to settings that I would use on something like a 2-way style compressor. I like to put that at the end of a bass chain. It's a very gentle compressor there, sort of rolls off any peaks coming through at the end. At the bottom, you're going to find the cabinet selector. There are 3 cabinets to choose from. The first is my own favorite. The second has a little more scooped tone. And the third is called flat cab, which is a very mid-forward cab. Finally, you have a no cab option. So if you wanted to use an external impulse response and some other software, you can definitely do that. If you don't have an impulse response loader, here's a little tip. Every convolution reverb that comes with your DAW works as an IR loader. Simply take your guitar cab, throw it into Space Designer, for example, and you have your own impulse response. I've done that for years. In the bottom corner over here, we have a size control as well. You can scale the interface up or down depending on your screen size or your preference or eyes. So yeah, that's the controls. Let's get into some examples. So the first one is going to be what I call the filthy jazz bass preset. This is my typical approach to making a tone where the low mid and high mid knobs are sort of toward the middle. So you're getting a good amount of grind from the low end, a good amount of presence from the high mids. And then on the very high band, I don't have too much going on because like I said, I'm not a huge fan of that pick attack or string clank sound, but you're always welcome to turn that up if you need a little more presence. Let's check it out. The next example here is called Fuzzed Out, man. This is also a preset that comes with this plugin. This takes the low mid channel, cranks it. It takes the high mid channel, doesn't distort it at all. So what you end up with is a very fuzzy sound. Since you don't have that high mid giving you that sort of cut through tone, you just have the low mid fuzzing things out. Blends perfectly with guitars. And there's a lot of cool situations that you could use a preset like this in. Next up is the Dingwall Grind preset, a must-have in a modern metal bass amp. What I'm doing here is scooping the mid section a little bit harder while increasing the drive of the high mid. And what I found here is when you scoop the low mids and you turn up the drive on the high mids, you get a sort of dark glass kind of tone that is very popular these days. Also compressing the low end quite a bit here, keep that nice and even. I've got a little gate going on as well for the silences. Finally, we have the 2000s indie vibe. This is a sort of low gain amp, similar to if you were listening to like a early 2000s punk or indie band. You've got a P bass going through an Ampeg or something similar. The gain isn't too crazy or anything like that, but there's just a little distortion that blends it into the mix. In the final mix, you probably can hardly hear it, but if you listen to the isolated tracks, you'll hear that there's a fair amount of distortion going on there. This is just to show you how this amp can clean itself up to be nice and presentable. As a bonus, I'm going to take this Grinding Bones preset, use it on the exact same signal, just to show you the difference of how many different tones can work. And what really is going to matter here is how it fits into your mix. And you can, you have so much modularity to tweak every aspect of this to fit it perfectly into your mix. Well, yeah, that's QuadBass. I hope you enjoyed the tones here. I'm doing an introductory offer on these plugins through mid-February, where they are off by almost 25%. So you can save big by buying now. You can also try the demo of QuadBass. That'll be on my website, joecalderoneaudio.com. The only difference between the demo version and the full version is that the demo version is going to bypass the audio processing periodically. However, you'll be able to save presets, and if you buy the full plugin, you'll be able to continue right where you left off as the new plugin and take the place of the old one. And as far as your DAW is concerned, they're the same. Nothing has changed here. Your session should run just fine. Additionally, I have the Arcadia U7, which is my take on the classic Avalon U5 Direct Box. You'll find that in Geddy Lee's rig. You can buy both of these plugins as the bass recording bundle. Save even more. It's on sale. Get it while you can. You won't regret it. Comment down below with any questions or any thoughts that you might have. Look forward to chatting with you next time.